we started Rubaru 10 years ago, we ourselves were young people, 23 to 24 years old, and we didn't find a space. We didn't have a safe space where we could learn about ourselves, we could learn about our political self, we could learn about ourselves in the context of the community and the society we live in, and we didn't have a space where we could learn about our own potential.
And as young people, in the Indian context, we are familiar with, we often are asked to follow the rules, follow and abide by the rules. And that's why in a lot of fear, we follow our parents, we follow our teachers, we follow the fads and the norms, and somewhere we get limited to understand our full potential because of the limited opportunities we have.
And so in this passion of wanting to work with young people, we registered ourselves. We registered the organization as Rubaru and we set out. And once we set out, we started looking at, if we really had to ask you, before we even registered, if we had to ask you when we wanted to become youth workers, what would you imagine a youth worker's role or a job to be like? Maybe you imagine this, lots of young people coming together in groups. Maybe you imagine this, where young people are sitting together, having meals, talking, having discussions. Maybe it's this, again, youth doing events, leading events, or maybe this.
But what we did not know we signed up for was not just youth work, but actually setting up a full organization. And it looked pretty much like this, the back end, the most boring work which it takes to set up any organization. It looked like this. To actually recreate, because of limited funds, how do we maximize all our resources? And it looked like this, a lot of work. It had words like finance, fundraising, HR, OD, and everything to sustain an organization. And that's precisely why we are here. We are here to tell a story that how young people, one day over chai, said, oh, let's start something, but what it really took us to 10 years down the line to still survive it.
So, let's ask this question, what makes an organization? And so we've put together a strategy that maybe if some of you are interested in starting an organization, any sort of organization, some key principles on what to think of. The first one is really surviving in leadership. When we started out 10 years ago, something that we were very, very conscious of right from day one was to create a space of shared leadership. How can everybody within the team take ownership, take responsibility of what the organization is meant to look like? And something that when I think of this is when it reminds me of a story that once when Neha was on a panel for incubation of startups, something that she had said was the difference between the word founder and co-founder. And think of it, right? The word founder has a lot of responsibility. It may feel glorious. It may have a lot of weight within itself. You may feel like, okay, I'm a founder. But really, what does the word co-founder mean? Immediately it brings together people in your mind. That it's not just one person. There are people together running something. It's shared responsibility. It's a shared vision for the direction of the organization. And that's how it's really about having a lens of sustainable leadership.
Yeah, and when we look into Rubaru's journey, which started 10 years ago, it has multiple co-founders, it has multiple founders, and it has a founding team which has really stood by us, which has come into shape when, in multiple forms, they have stood by us, they have brainstormed with us, and they have held our back when we almost felt we can't go. And of course it's a term, but what did it really mean for Monisha and me? And how did we even meet? A lot of people ask us, how do you really find a co-founder? And that's where, when we do a lot of training with other startups, they said, I'm not able to find a founder, co-founder. I can't trust anybody. But how did we get going? We met each other in a similar workspace in youth-led organizations. Again, over chai, we said, hey, this sounds interesting. Do we start something together? And it was a yes. It was a yes from the first day. But what we did not really know about each other was our conflict handling modes, our personality types, our work styles, and we did not know what we are really in our personal life. Because that everything really matters when you are starting together. Because when you get going, these kind of matters really play out such a big role. And in the last 10 years, I think that is what has been the most significant thing, is to still keep finding what and who we really are and how do we keep this going. And yeah.
And that's what I think it has been also about the space that we've tried to create at Rubaru. It is about building an honest culture every day of everything that we do. Because like Neha said, it's really about taking conflict in our stride. It's not something we may sign up for, but it is something that is a reality for us to navigate every day when we're running an organization. Not just as co-founders, but even conflict within teams. And when we say establishing an honest culture, it is about, all the baggage, all inclusive with the arguments, the disagreements, the fighting, the sometimes not talking to each other. It's including all of that we're trying to build.
Yeah, and goes without saying is when this opportunity of, we got invited to the TEDx and Monisha said, hey, let's do it together. We have done it together. And I think that's how we are here for our very first TED Talk together.
And so we talk about the next step in our strategy. The second step is really about co-creating with community. When we started, again, in the first year, we spent time working in the field before formally registering. We spent time in the field figuring out what are some of the gaps, what are some of the things that are needed, doing an assessment of where we're going to be working in the community that we are part of, and to be able to co-create it with them. And along the way, I think we started understanding that young people may come from diverse demographics, may come from diverse backgrounds, but it's really that young people are misunderstood everywhere, just like we were when we started.
Yeah, and I think that's also the most amazing story of how we even came up with the word Rubaru and how the beautiful process of Monisha designing the logo happened. We want to show you our logo. Our logo is inspired by the symbol phi, and if you look into it, if you zoom into it, it speaks about breaking patterns. Because, yeah, we need to change a lot of patterns which are formed in the community. We try to bring in a thin line between us and them. That's what we are trying to do. We are trying to be face to face with each other because I need to know the reality of the other. And it also brings the larger heart out because it needs the soul of a person to really understand the other person, and that is how we understand a community before working with the community. So our logo, our name, our everything belongs to the community, and that's how the journey of Rubaru started.
And while we talk about the community, I think we're also incredibly proud to share that right now our team is led by proximate leaders, which means that these are young people from community spaces, these are young people who are alumni of our previous programs, because that's how right now they're coming together to co-create what is the strategy of the organization going ahead. Many of them are also here today, that we're really proud to have.
The third step, that's partnering for change. Now, how do we create a collective when in an environment which is so competitive? We are competitive for being the best organization, we are competitive for limited funds because we want to survive and we want the funds. We are competing for funds, for visibility, to be the best organization, for awards. But in this entire atmosphere which is so competitive, how do you really create collectivization? How do you create collective organization? And that has been a really driving force. That how do we even understand who is a potential partner, and that's when we took a step back and understood that anyone and everyone is a partner, be it a family member who was some of our first funders, to our friends, to our alumni, to random strangers, to vendors, to stakeholders. Anyone and everyone here is a partner in this change-making process.
The fourth step in our journey, in our strategy of what we believe is needed for organizations, is really that how change makers practice what they believe in every single day of their life. It's really about breaking stigma, negotiating at home with families, sometimes the tough decisions they may not want you to be part of. It is about challenging stereotypes. It is about breaking and challenging power structures, whether it is, not saying don't call me sir, don't call me ma'am, is also an important power structure to break. And it's really all of this that helps us along the way to believe in what we are doing.
It hasn't been easy because it's absolutely not easy to challenge mindset. It's not easy because it makes you feel very vulnerable. It's not the journey to find your authentic self, where what has been your conditioning, what are your personal biases, how do you really discriminate? Will we actually be able to ask that, am I discriminating somebody? Do we have that kind of power to even question ourselves? And that is what even this entire journey is all about.
And the feminist slogan, personal is political, really highlights that. You cannot leave your personal when you're talking about the political or vice versa. It's not possible to do that. I think so many others also share it today, that this whole thing, the whole separation of work and life is great and important for well-being. But really when we talk about our life values, our life vision and who we want to be, both of these need to be intertwined and go in sync with each other.
And the last step, sustaining the change. Now the organization has been created out of complete passion. But how do you really sustain an organization beyond the founding team, beyond the co-founders, or beyond the people who really envisioned the entire passion? This entire journey has been about creating the ripples of change, and how do we sustain that? We inspired all the young people who became part of the journey to start questioning the entire process. We started inspiring them with social action initiatives, and through those initiatives, they started experiencing what does it really mean to feel the process of change. And because of that, is that our organization right now is not just limited to us. It's beyond us, and it's anyone and everyone who has been part of Ruburu who's making those kind of social action initiatives in their community, in their houses, in their personal life, everywhere and anywhere.
And so these were the 5 steps, the strategy that we strongly believe, that helps an organization build and nurture itself for 10 years and hopefully many, many years more. And while we talk about these 5 steps, we also constantly reflect on the 5 values, on the different values that drive the decision making in each of these steps.
The first one, it was integrity. And integrity of what we really started to keep it going. It wasn't about, oh, I'm tired, I can't do this. We took a step back, we took rest, somebody else stepped in, somebody else took it forward, but we kept going. It was our integrity to our initial vision that what we have committed to should go, and it should be process dependent, not a person dependent.
The second step, when we talk about co-creating with community, we talk about compassion. It really is compassion where we're able to learn and live with community spaces to understand the context that they come from. And compassion has to be both empathy and action going hand in hand for us to really understand how we can create spaces that can be supportive spaces.
The third value which really drives us is joy. Now the joy is not the fun word, or it's not a joyride, but it's the joy of unlearning. It's the joy of finding a new self It's the joy of becoming uncomfortable, challenging yourselves, and of unlearning. It's the joy of collective learning and to ensure that it's a win-win for everyone and it's just not my win or her win, but it's everyone's win who's trusted us in this entire process.
Our fourth value is of courage. Courage is really, really important, and this is what drives when we talk about fighting these battles every day. Whether it's fighting with our families, negotiating with our families, whether it's navigating patriarchy outside, whether it's figuring out what is the battle that I want to fight today, it really needs courage. Because when we talk about mindset and behavior change, it's not just something that I read in a textbook and say, everybody should start being sustainable, everybody should start being, living consciously. It's really about what is the action that I'm going to take. So if there's plastic bottle, if there's a paper cup, can I reject that paper cup? I may feel easy and convenient that I'm going to consume it, but how am I actually working with my own behavior and mindset to say that I am going to reject this, I'm going to deal with that awkward situation in that moment, and then go ahead with what I want to do next. And it really takes courage for us to fight that every single day.
And the last value of what it really meant to sustaining change, it was agency. Now agency, if you really quickly Google search, it means someone who is selling something. But what was Rubro selling? Rubro is trying to sell tools of self-growth. We want to know what it really means to give a person an agency and what does it really mean to practice agency. And agency over here kept that how young people or anyone can practice decision making, can practice the process of being able to take their own informed choices and lead their own path, which is guided by their own choices.